I appreciate and endorse your sentiments, but I don't think that I have the time that the position requires. You know, and I would like to see someone who can really devote the time and energy to it. My responsibilities in with the public press are significant enough as it is, and I do not think I could do the position the justice it requires at this time. So I would love to see someone else. In fact, maybe I can pass things along, and or maybe I'll stop there and see if there are other nominations. But thank you. I appreciate it. I cannot accept it at this time.
Okay. Thank you. And I want to also express same sentiments that member Neighbors put forward. I mean, I have been sitting in this position for quite some time, and you know, for sake of a better answer, it's by default because nobody else wanted to do it. So that's why we're kind of suggesting that proposal. But nonetheless, please, all nominations, the floor is open.
I could turn around and say, Chair, if I may, Member Wong, who has now been on the task force for quite some time and has also been on the Compliance and Amendments Committee, and is very thoughtful and deliberate and knows the ordinance in great detail, I think would be a great candidate for either position. And I would nominate her for the position of her choice, or encourage her to consider the possibility of shadowing, because I think she would also be great in a leadership role with this organization.
Okay, well, let's start with one at a time. So let's start with the chair's position. Member Wong.
Similar to you, Member LaHood, I really appreciate the nomination. I actually have a similar situation where I have a lot of responsibilities as a board member of the League of Women Voters. So I don't think I have time to commit to doing so. I think I would be interested in shadowing in the future, but I think at this time, maybe not.
Floor is still open, folks. We're starting with the chair position.
This is Member Highland.
Go ahead.
I'd like to support the current chair and vice chair, as stated, and I'm actually the longest serving member on this current task force, and I had the pleasure of serving with Chair Alison Washburn, both as her vice chair and as her acting chair when she left. So it hasn't been too far in the distant past that we've had a lady chairing this task force, just to make everyone feel a little more comfortable. But having said that, I'm happy to support, either a female for either role. Also, we just want to pass that on to everybody. But I do like the idea of keeping the current leaders we have. I like the idea of shadowing. It's kind of like, at a golf club, you select the captain and the vice captain. The vice captain becomes the captain the next year. And that's really a shadow role. Seems to work well for a couple hundred years in most golf clubs. So I like that idea. So I would like to nominate Bruce Wolf for chair. I'll end on that.
I'll accept the nomination, considering the, just considering the proposal I made, and also, but encourage folks to step up and see if you are, to really see about taking up the helm of this at some point. I really am trying to wind down, and but I don't want to just do it, cold turkey, and then, things get thrown in kind of a tizzy. And because there's just there is a lot of moving parts to this right now. And considering the, we're still kind of working remotely. City Hall's not open yet. Like I said, I'm open to do it, but I would prefer not to do it for the entire year.
It's a 1 year. It's a 1 year term from today, correct?
Correct.
So, in your comments, it sounds like you do want to hand over the reins. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, like I said, I'll accept the nomination. It's actually until the next election. So whenever, the point, usually the terms end at the end of April. So it'd be the first meeting of May that the election takes place on an annual basis. So, like I said, I'm willing to do it again by default, but I really would. It would be so helpful if folks would consider shadowing me and whoever the vice chair ends up being tonight to assure smooth transition.
Well, not to get ahead of ourselves, and I'm going to do exactly that. I'd like to see Member Yankee as vice chair and potentially as chair next year, because he would have shadowed you this last year and the coming year. And this is also the first time in 10 years we've had a full complement to actually have this vote, to have any meaningful import, because we've always been short of members and the timing and whatnot. So I would be comfortable with that transition plan.
Well, let's get through the election first before we talk about transition plan. I'm putting that out there in my acceptance speech of the motion. Member LaHood.
Perhaps this is premature, but would our bylaws allow for us to have a vice chair and then a second vice chair, so that there's a more established sequence?
No, we would have to amend our bylaws because that doesn't exist. But by creating kind of the shadow experience, I mean, that I'm wondering if that might not lend to that, because the purpose of the shadow is that whoever is interested in doing that, they would have, they'd be involved in all the, administrative functions that goes on. And, it's, if somebody feels like it's manageable for them, then, come however much time it takes for them to feel comfortable, we'll hold another election. But I like your idea.
Also, do we have to be careful of having too many people in the mix and not violating our own meeting laws?
True.
So what is that number?
Well, it's really a matter of the what's being discussed. I mean, it's much of the work that we do is purely administrative. It's logistics. It's not really regarding the merits of the matters at all. So it's purely in a lot of ways logistics, and sometimes having meetings to kind of determine whether, we're gathering information for the task to present to the task force. Usually it's no more than 1 or 2 people to do that at a time. It's really administrative matters at that point. And we do, as often as we can, keep as notes for those things that, if people want to ask, we make sure that there are notes, and there's, recording of a record that a meeting had taken place, that kind of thing. So, we try to keep with our transparency, and what we're doing here. So don't want to spend too much more time. If there's the last call for nominations for the chair. Okay, hearing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Member Frazier, second.
Okay, moved by Member Highland to elect Bruce Wolf as chair, seconded by Member Frazier. Any further discussion on this motion?
I would just quickly say kudos to you all for thinking about longevity and institutional knowledge. So just appreciate the amount of thought that was put into this idea.
And I'd just like to say for the record that, I'm very sensitive to the lack of diversity that the task force has had for many, many years. And the fact that we have, as I would say, as close to complete diversity now. We have very good balance now, and I just want to be sensitive to that. And I understand, the reluctance, but I really try to encourage everybody to think about taking up the leadership at some point or another. It's only for a year. It's a good experience into city government and all of that, and so I appreciate your confidence in me, in continuing on. So thank you. Okay, seeing none, let's move to public comment.
Yes, please.
Ms. Leger?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. For the sake of impartiality, since all of you judge my complaints, I'm not going to make any comment for or against any person, but I will point out something Member Highland, I believe, said about meeting transparencies when these kinds of offline meetings happening. Has actually was discussed in one of your own committee hearings against, I think, the Board of Supervisors. The Sunshine Ordinance goes beyond the Brown Act, and apparently even congregations, when it's not necessarily in your subject matter jurisdiction, appear to constitute a meeting under the Sunshine Ordinance. And so I would hope that that's just taken into account if there's more than 2 people, since obviously your committees are 3 people and your full task force 6 people would constitute a meeting. The other side of that is obviously I have those conversations that have appeared both at the Board of Supervisors and the chair and vice chair. I very much look forward to you all enacting some sort of way of consolidating complaints. As was discussed a second ago, it would be very, very helpful for all of us. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
You ready?
Yeah. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful to have more public input during this whole selection of chairs or leadership roles or what have you. And I mean, I don't know exactly how ceremonial these leadership roles are, whether or not they actually have much of an influence on the outcome of individual cases. But you know, it seems like it might be a good idea to have to allow for more public input, just so as to foster more public trust in the task force. Yeah, thank you.
Any other public comment? Last call for public comment. Okay, hearing none. Ready for a vote? Hearing no objections, please call roll.
Member Highland? Member Highland? I think you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Aye. Technical issues. Aye.
Member Highland, aye. Member Frazier?
Aye.
Member Frazier, aye. Member Padmanabhan?
Aye.
Member Padmanabhan, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Forsley?
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member LaHood?
Aye.
Member LaHood, aye. Chair Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. The motion to have Bruce Wolf as chair passes.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to vice chair. Floor is open for nominations.
I have a question. Do we need to nominate Matt Yankee?
Yes, because
Okay.
elections are fresh every year.
Okay, I would like to nominate him.
Okay. Matt, do you
I'll
accept
accept.
the nomination?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? Nominations for vice chair. Okay, last call for nominations for vice chair.
This is Member Wong.
Member
So can I say that I would be open to shadowing for vice chair?
Absolutely. Doesn't need to be voted on. You just step up and do it.
Awesome. Okay, let's do it.
Okay. All right, last call for nominations for vice chair. Okay, hearing none. Let's get a motion on the floor. Is there a motion to elect or re-elect?
This is Member Frazier. I move to re-elect Member Yankee as the vice chair.
Is there a second?
This is
Second.
member. Oh, okay. It's fine.
Go ahead.
Well, this is member Stein. I'm happy to second, but I think someone else seconded.
That's okay.
Okay.
Moved by Member Frazier, second by Member Stein to re-elect Matthew Yankee, Member Yankee, to the Vice Chair Officer position. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, let's open it up for public comment. Any public comment?
Yeah, I'll comment again.
Ms. Leger.
Are you ready, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So yeah, I guess I don't know, it just seems somewhat problematic that, you know, you have the same chair and vice chair. I understand that. I guess Mr. Wolf is the only person who's willing to be the chair, so that's how you end up with Mr. Wolf as the chair. I don't know if that maybe that's I guess the discussion with Mr. Yankee as vice chair is that you're grooming him to become the chair in the future. I don't know. It wasn't quite clear to me, but you know, this was the makeup last year, and so I don't know. I feel like organizations are healthier when they don't necessarily have the same people in the same leadership positions over and over again. So yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Anonymous.
Thank you very much. Again, not going to comment on or against the person, but in the context, I think it's a great idea to have a person who is some person who will shadow whoever is the vice chair as to do future leadership. I agree with the prior speaker, but I think the issue is, and I think this is to the public at large, more people need to actually volunteer for the SOTF. And I assume it's quite difficult because you guys have to work very long meetings and you're unpaid, and someone's going to hate you no matter what you decide. So I hope more people would volunteer for the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. As far as I know, in the last two, and then maybe there is more diversity and more fresh opinions. And again, whoever is the vice chair, as I said with the chair, I hope you do institute these, create new procedures that allow more efficient handling of multiple complaints and so on. I know it's been discussed for quite some time. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, public comment is closed. Are we ready for a vote? Hearing no objections, please call the roll.
Wait, I see a hand raised.
Sorry.
I don't see a hand.
I want to,
Go ahead.
sorry, I do want to say that I do tend to agree with what the one of the speakers said in terms of even if things are going great, it's great to have different people in the different roles. I think this is kind of a transition year of sorts because I think it was, we weren't even meeting as a body or something at one point. So I think that continuity is really important at this time. And I will also say that I think that Member Yankee also does a great job. Like he has contributions to the minutes. And I think those type of administrative things are really, really important. So, and also Member Stein as well. So I think that that's the administrative things that have to really be in place.
Member Wong.
Yeah, along those lines, in response to an earlier comment, I just wanted to say that members of the public can make comment and give contributions to who is on the task force before we are appointed. during the Board of Supervisors Rules Committee. So that is one way to have input. It's not specifically to the leadership within the task force, but something to keep in mind for future task forces.
It's a very good point. Thank you. All right, are we ready for a vote? Okay, please call the roll.
Member Frazier?
Aye.
Member Frazier, aye. Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Padmanabhan?
Aye.
Member Padmanabhan, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Forsley?
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member LaHood?
Aye.
Member LaHood, aye. Member Highland?
Aye.
Member Highland, aye. Chair Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. The motion to elect Matthew Yankee as vice chair has passed.
Okay. Let's move to the next item.
Item number 10, take position and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on AB 703, AB 339, and SB 116. I have provided links to everybody, so it shouldn't be difficult to get to.
Okay, so let me just preface this by saying that the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force doesn't take positions, but we will consider a position to make as a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Let me just clarify it that way, so there's nobody misinterprets that our authority or lack of authority at this point. So what we're asking the board, what we will do is we're basically asking the Board of Supervisors we'll review these, we'll have some discussion about them, and then see if there's any recommendations that we want to make to the Board of Supervisors on a position that we recommend for them to take on these items. I'm wondering, Vice Chair Yankee, if maybe you want to take the lead on this item.
Sure.
Go ahead. Passing the gavel to you.
So I think we can look at the first one, which was pull up the AB 339. There's a variety of proposals within this bill, or so some of it would, a lot of it has to do with extending some of the remote meeting options through, telephone or video conference, and kind of setting some parameters for that going forward. I believe it used to, if it still does, there was some language in there about having interpreters, but I bet that may have been changed, or that may have been in another bill. So that's 339. See, the next one is AB 703. And this one also, this one also has to do with teleconferencing in meetings, and this is the one that I believe has the, this one have the interpreter in there? That may have been stripped out. These look like they were recently amended since I last took a look at them, but they're both the concept on both of these is remote meetings, teleconferencing options, and kind of setting some parameters going forward to deal with both of those.
The interpretation provision, I think, is in AB 339. It says interpretation services should be provided if requested.
Okay, yeah.
And there's also something which I'll just throw in because I kind of had a question about it. It changes the foreign language requirements for publication of, I guess, notice of meetings. And I guess in the past it was if over 5% of the population spoke a different language, you were supposed to put those notices in that language. And it changes it to the two most common languages after English. So I don't know if that's going to decrease the amount of languages that notices were provided in? It seems like it might.
You know, if you click, that's what I thought. If you click the link, it looks like that stuff's been stripped out into the.
Oh, has it?
That was published yesterday. That's why I got confused here.
Oh.
Yeah, if you search for the word language in the document, it only, I think, appears once, not with a strike through.
Yeah, so I think the prior iteration of this language had it, and then if you click the actual live link, it looks like that must have just been amended yesterday. That's why I got a little thrown
I
out.
reviewed it like 2-3 days ago.
Yeah, changes that fast. So yeah, this once this date published 5/4. So it looks like this is now just focusing on, and actually this says it looks like it's just was amended to apply to city councils or county board of supervisors, the governor jurisdiction of at least 250,000 people. So it wouldn't even extend, looks like, to boards and commissions or to any of the smaller cities or counties within the state. So I don't know if
Chair Wolf is on mute.
I'm sorry?
Oh, Chair Wolf was speaking, but he's on mute.
I'm sorry. Member Neighbors, then Member LaHood, then myself.
Thanks. I'm wondering about how we can make a recommendation when the language is still changing in such a profound way. I mean, one of the things that really stood out in AB 339 to me that I was really interested and excited about was an emphasis on two-way video participation as a requirement, and now that's been struck out, right? So is there an end date for edits? Can we make recommendations once those edits are done? I'm just a little bit concerned about making a recommendation while edits are still in process.
So are you saying something like support if amended? Or that we should recommend that specific amendments be made in order before a position is considered?
I think it more that we would need to say, as of our reading on the specific date, that is our recommendation, because changes are going to happen between the time that we stop looking at it now and the time that they read our recommendation, right? So we're really only recommending the document that we are looking at right now. It's like making rolling requests that never end.
Okay, Member LaHood.
Yeah, one thing that jumped out at me right away in 339 was the the telephonic option or an internet-based service option. And, you know, it seems like the pandemic is lifting and maybe this won't be as important, but we don't know if we're going to end up back in this situation again. You know, we could, even with all the vaccines, there could be another wave. And I'm concerned with the internet option being allowed as an only option, especially since we know, based on people who participate in our meetings and who don't necessarily have broadband access that would allow them to be limited to have to have internet access to participate. And I would like it I would like telephonic access to be mandatory and internet access to be nice too. But I don't think we can say that internet access only will be sufficient to serve the entire community.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm very concerned about this for a number of reasons. One is in the opening of this particular chapter 54.953, it talks about, and this is does not have a sunset date. This would be permanent. It says all and edited in, open and public, I'll just say quote and unquote, which means the amendments. All, quote, open and public, unquote, meetings, open quote, of a city council or a county board of supervisors that governs a jurisdiction containing at least 250,000 people, unquote, shall include an opportunity for members of the public to attend via a telephonic option or open quote, or unquote, an internet-based service option. Now, what about those cities that are less than 250,000 people? What happens to them? There is no provision for them. Now, halfway down, when you get to G, it says this section shall remain in effect only until December 31st, 2023. And as of that date is repealed, but not anything before that. It's section G that will be repealed, that those amendments, but not anything above that. So I'm really concerned that now public comment will be basically nullified for any city or county or even unincorporated area of a county. Well, that would be a county, I guess, that has less than 250,000 people. I don't understand where that comes from. Let's see. The other parts are, and then it goes down to D, all open and public meetings of a city council or a county board of supervisors that governs a jurisdiction containing at least 250,000 people shall comply with the following requirements. And there's not much addition to that, except there is a there's no it removes the requirement for having to register. It's basically there's a repeal for what was 5C, stating registration for a public comment period is permitted so long as instructions to register are posted. We don't require that here. There's no requirement to register for public comment. People can remain anonymous in that way. So that's not really a big deal. Moving down the line, then you get to G, and we get to this part that has a sunset clause. But read the very first line, 54954.2A1. The posting requirement is being repealed for 2 years. I'm sorry, 3 years. Almost 3 years, probably be 2.5 years by the time, if this passes. Okay, and it removes most of the meat of the Brown Act for running a meeting. So I'm pretty concerned about that. If you go down to the amendment, the actual replacement language, there is some repetition, but it basically only talks about teleconferencing, the allowance for using teleconferencing, but the removal of the posting requirements as far as time, the 72-hour advance, poof, it disappears. So I'm not sure how we feel about that. I'll stop there. Any other comments on this before I call public comment? I think it's worthwhile to have public comment before we make a motion on this one, because it's so, so deep. Okay, let's open up for public comment. Ms. Leger?
Yes.
Do we have a speaker ready?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, they're ready.
Okay.
Oh.
And one more as well.
Anonymous, go ahead.
Thank you. So I actually wrote to the task force strongly encouraging you to recommend that the Board of Supervisors actually endorse this. And I can no longer do that, and I feel embarrassed for asking you to. Obviously, the text was completely changed on May 4th, days long after I and many other organizations were supporting it, and I agree. This is completely watered down. It is it's basically a Trojan horse to weaken public meeting laws now. It wasn't that way before, and I don't at all think that you endorsed it. Everything discussed today is correct as of the May 4th version of this bill. And it takes, I don't understand this 250,000 people limit. It wasn't there before. The fact that it only applied to city council and county board of supervisors, why is that? That's ridiculous. The or versus and issue, ridiculous as well. The issue that automatic, the fact that these things are only remaining in effect until certain days and then repealed, that's absolutely ridiculous. And it is very strange that I mean, I don't know if a lawyer didn't do their job by making G apply to like the entire section instead of just maybe the online access, which is like what they probably or wanted for COVID. But it's absolutely ridiculous. It would absolutely gut the Brown Act. So I would strongly urge the task force not at all to support this AB 339 as it is written, the version May 4th amended by the Assembly. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Yeah,
Hang on.
can I go ahead? Okay.
Nope. Not yet.
So I can start?
Yep.
She'll let you know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I guess I don't really understand the point of recommending the Board of Supervisors, because I guess this legislation hasn't actually passed yet. So is this one of those things where the Board of Supervisors is going to like make a motion supporting one of these things or opposing one of these things? Because like, you know, those motions don't really have any teeth. I don't know if anyone in the state assembly actually changes their mind because the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco said that they either like this bill or didn't like this bill. That being said, and then of course here the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force is like, so you're trying to tell the Board of Supervisors to have an opinion so that they can tell the state assembly to have an opinion. I don't know, it's just a little bit absurd. But that being said, as far as having an opinion, and now I'm trying to tell you to have an opinion. So yeah, chain of absurdity. That being said, as far as concerns about these bills, I've not read them myself, but from what's been discussed so far, one thing that wasn't mentioned that I would be concerned about would be accessibility issues. I do agree that certainly having these available to people without internet access is important, but I think it's also important to make sure that these are accessible to people with various disabilities, such as visual impairments or hearing impairments. For example, this meeting does not seem to be very accessible to somebody who has a hearing impairment, and so making sure that meetings are accessible to people with various disabilities would be important, and making sure that the legislation covers for that.
30 seconds.
Okay. And then privacy and security would also be something that I would be concerned about. Okay, so yeah, that's all I have to say.
Next speaker.
Who's next?
You.
Okay, let me know when I can start.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Warfield.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com. Also P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Thank you very much for all of the comments that I've heard. And excuse me, I'm particularly concerned with and glad that I believe it was Lila LaHood who expressed a concern about a certain or instead of and that is there seem to be a number of instances where there's talk about permitting or requiring that there be and I've lost the place, but there's an or instead of an and between telephone or telephonic access and internet access. And if you take that to mean either one is okay, then that means only internet access would be okay. And I think that is very wrong and very inappropriate. Telephone access has a tremendous breadth of breadth and depth. I'm not sure what the figures are, 99% or whatever of folks have access to a telephone. And I have a number of times quoted, I'm not sure how often I've quoted it here, but we had a city report, the so-called City and County of San Francisco Digital Equity Strategic Plan 2019 to 24, which put numbers on the folks that do not have internet access from home. And what that found was not only that there were over 100,000 people in San Francisco without internet access or high-speed internet access, but that this, when you look into who among those people is the most affected, you find what you'd expect to find, but it's very radical differences. So, for example, among people with 25,000, I have a little longer than that on my time, but anyway, income-wise, those under 25,000 and under have 59% have access from home. 200,000 and above have 98%. Racially, it's whites on top, blacks on the bottom, Asians and Latins in the middle. And age-wise, the older segment of population has a very strong drop-off in terms of access. So cutting telephone access is a very, very bad idea and should not be endorsed. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Last call for public comment. Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion or any further discussion? Let's start with that. Any further discussion or motion? Okay, I'll make a motion. I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to oppose the amendments in Assembly Bill 339, in that removing the jurisdiction around the minimum of 250,000 people is inappropriate and not within the spirit of open meetings and transparency. Not transparency, open meetings and the public's right to voice their concerns. That's number one, part one. Part two, that the repeal of section 2, section 54.954, that's 54954.2, be restored. And that, which includes the interpretation services, and to include the suggestions and sentiments of the public testimony we heard tonight. On this matter. Is there a second?
Could we hear that back?
You want me to read it, Bruce? I typed it.
Sure.
Moved by Bruce Wolf to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to oppose the amendments in AB 339, and that removing the jurisdiction around the minimum of 250,000 people is inappropriate and not within the spirit of open meetings and the public right to voice their concerns. That the repeal of Section 2, 54954.2 be restored, which includes the interpretation services and include the sentiments of public testimony heard tonight on this matter.
Okay, let me clarify this. It's actually 3 parts. So the second part is, let me rephrase that. That the repeal of section 54.954.2 is abhorrent to the spirit of sunshine and public meetings. And 3, to include the sentiments and suggestions that the public commenters we heard tonight be included in our recommendations.
Are you ready for a second?
Yes, ready for a second.
This is member Neighbors. I'll second.
Okay, moved by the chair, second by member Neighbors. Any further discussion? Okay, let's take public comment on the motion. See if we missed anything. Any public comment? Last
Yeah.
call. Okay.
You ready, sir?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Thank you for the motion. I think perhaps it would be an improvement to make some particular specifications about the contents of the public comments that you're including by a general mention. But I think that some of the specifics are very important. What I was concerned about with and spoke about specifically was what looks like a permitting of only internet access rather than both telephone and internet access, And in my view, that would literally disenfranchise millions of people. With about 1 in 8 people in San Francisco, and with the population of California, I don't have good statistics for the state, but I think that there would be huge numbers of folks who would simply not be able to make public comment, to participate, to listen, and so on and so forth. So I think that some of the public comments that were made might, particularly with regard to the way that the person can access the meeting.
Member Stein, hold on a second. Please stop the clock. Member Stein, can you please
Yeah,
mute?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Speaker.
Thank you. So I would just urge that perhaps for there to be a specific mention of the most basic thing, and that is, how do people access, how do they have an ability to listen to a meeting, and how do they have an opportunity to make public comment? And if you have the or instead of the and, you would potentially disenfranchise very large numbers of people. I'm just hoping that you might put that. I'm just hoping that you'll consider putting that and perhaps some of the other public comments more explicitly, rather than in a kind of a general reference without specifics as to the content. Thanks very much.
Any other public comment? Okay. Ms. Leger?
I didn't hear. Was there another public comment there?
There, I believe so. Our audio is beginning to deteriorate here.
Sir, are you ready?
I am.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Going along with what Mr. Warfield said, I would also suggest a more specific. So I'd suggest that the motion say that the Board of Supervisors should recommend that Section 1-54953-B have the phrase containing at least 250,000 people be struck, have the or in the first sentence of that subsection be replaced with and optionally. So it requires a telephonic option and optionally also an internet-based service option, to strike the phrase containing at least 250,000 people on Section 1-54953-D, to also strike Section 1-54953-G, which is what removes in-person access after December 31st, 2023, and then to strike Section 2 altogether. And at least my reading of and that's specifically, I would ask that you reference May 4th, the May 4th, 2021 amended version, so that they know exactly what you're talking about. Because if they don't do this and this law passes, it will seriously harm public access. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, so I'm still of the mind that we just ask them to oppose it and not try to fix it or amend it. I mean, if you look at the authors, it's none of the San Francisco, I don't believe any of the Bay Area representatives. So that's one signal. But I think that I think just asking them to oppose it completely with the reasons that have been brought forward by us and by members of the public here, I think included, should be sufficient enough for them to consider our recommendation for them to oppose. Yeah, Vice Chair Yankee.
Yeah, I was just scrolling down. I just want to make sure that everyone realized before we vote on this. I'm not sure if it changes anything, but there's that big part that was read and struck out, but looks like they are adding a new section at the bottom at 54953. If you go down to like the bottom quarter of the page, you have to scroll down that far. There's a bunch of other language that they added. I just want to make sure everyone saw that.
Yeah. It's somewhat repetition of basically what it does is it repeals 54954.2 and replaces this language called section 2, which would be new.
Right.
And still the red part would just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a can of worms.
Yeah.
Sure. So, all right. Anything else? We've got 2 others to consider that I think we can get through fairly quickly. Ready for a vote? Okay, please call the roll.
Chair Wolf,
Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. Excuse me. Member Neighbors,
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Frazier,
Aye.
Member Frazier, aye. Member Padmanabhan,
Aye.
Member Padmanabhan, aye. Member Stein,
You're
Member
muted.
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Forsley,
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Member Schmidt,
Nay.
Member Schmidt, no. Member Wong,
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Yankee,
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member LaHood,
Aye.
Member LaHood, aye. Member Highland, Member Highland,
I think he is absent.
Member Highland,
Yes.
absent.
Absent.
So I will read back the motion moved by Bruce Wolf, seconded by Member Neighbors, to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to oppose amendments in AB 339. Excuse me. That removing the jurisdiction around the minimum of 250,000 people is inappropriate and not within the spirit of open meeting and public right to voice their concerns. That the repeal of section 54954.2 is abhorrent to the spirit of sunshine, and that public meetings be restored, which include their interpretation services, and include the sentiments of the public testimony heard tonight on this matter, and include our recommendations.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you.
That was just for 339.
That's only for 339. Let's move to the next one. Is AB 703. This is fairly simple. It's basically supports how and expands how location and remote call-ins work. I don't see there being much of a problem with this one. Anybody? Nope. Okay, let's get some input from whoever public is left.
Do we have any public commenters?
Sure, I can speak to anonymous.
Go ahead, sir.
I would transfer all of the supportive comments I had originally in writing sent to you about AB 339 to this bill instead. And anything that improves access in any form is always a good thing. There is no reason that anyone who can't, necessarily have the ability to come to a particular place to have a meeting, those people should not be disenfranchised. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay, members, there a motion? Any other questions regarding this? Yes, Vice Chair Yankee.
Yeah, I was just going to note that it doesn't appear that there's a lot of support or activity around this bill. If you click into the bill analysis portion of it, tab for that, there doesn't seem to be anything. There were, many organizations that were lined up supported the other one. It's sometimes you'll see this, I've noticed, dealing with some other statewide legislation where you'll get related types of bills and most of the activity kind of shifts away from one end to the other. Not that we can't take a position on this one, but it seems like this one doesn't necessarily have the traction one way or another that the other one does. Just more of a note about.
Yeah. I think it's worthwhile, though, to at least let the Board of Supervisors know that we're tracking these and that maybe their state legislative committee, isn't or should be. And maybe they have, maybe they missed it, but that if this they do get a phone call, at least they have our blessings for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously it could be far more expanded than this, but I think this is kind of a transition back into kind of in-person meetings, but still retains the ability and the provisions for remote meetings because we never know what's going to happen with COVID. So, and this is obviously, this is actually, I think, it looks like it's referencing Executive Order number N2920. Yeah, okay. So basically saying that not a meeting notice, but has to be an agenda. And it basically addresses the public observance of the meeting to go beyond just in person. So I would go to support this one. And I'll make that motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to support AB 703, in that it would improve access to public meetings.
This is Vice Chair Yankee. I would second that. And maybe we just put the language in the bill as of April. Looks like this is April 29th, just in case.
Okay.
This language starts getting tweaked again, also.
Yeah, just in case something happens.
Like the other one, exactly.
Yeah, agreed.
You're putting that language into the motion. Is that what you're saying, Matt?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, where? What language?
That it's as of the published date, April 29th, 2021 at 9 p.m. It's the timestamp that's on the legislation itself.
April 21, you said?
April 2/9.
Okay.
At 9 p.m. Okay, any further discussion on this? Now that a motion's on the floor, any public comment on the motion?
We don't have a second. Matt, did you second?
Yes, I seconded.
All right.
Any public comment on the motion? Okay, seeing no public comment, are we ready for a vote? Seeing no objection, please call roll.
Chair Wolf,
Yes. Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. Member Yankee,
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member Frazier,
Aye.
Member Frazier, aye. Member Padmanabhan,
Aye.
Member Padmanabhan, aye. Member Neighbors,
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Stein,
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Forsley,
Aye.
Forsley, aye. Member Schmidt,
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Member Wong,
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member LaHood,
Aye.
Member LaHood, aye. Member Highland,
Absent.
absent, okay. The motion is to recommend to the Board of the Supervisors to support AB 703, that it would improve access to public meetings, and support the published date of April 29, 2021 at 9 p.m., seconded by Matt.
Correct. Okay, thank you. The next item is SB 16. This is on a different subject. That's pretty important. This one, it's very simple and straight ahead. It adds a redaction provision to protect the anonymity of victims and whistleblowers with regards to the release of peace officer records, the release of records on peace officers. That's pretty much the long and the short of it. Yeah, member Neighbors, go ahead. Sorry, I missed it. Seeing your hand.
I wanted to point out that this proposed bill has a lot of support from advocate organizations, other organizations, including ACLU, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, the National Association of Social Workers, and Voices for Progress. There's many more that supported as well, and I'm excited about being able to pass an endorsement on to the Board of Supervisors for this bill.
Is that a motion?
If folks feel like going straight to a motion, I would, but I would assume you want to discuss.
You can go straight. If somebody makes a motion, it will be honored at any time.
Okay. I move that we endorse SB 16 to the Board of Supervisors to underscore the public's right to know, particularly in terms of the investigation of alleged incidents by officers against members of the public that could potentially be disguised as personnel records.
Let me just wordsmith that a bit. If we can't make endorsements, is
Okay.
that the motion would be to make a recommendation to endorse Senate Bill 16 for the Board of Supervisors to endorse Senate Bill 16. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? Member Schmidt.
Second.
Okay, good. Moved by member Neighbors, second by member Schmidt. Is there any further discussion on this? Any public comment?
I do have one question. About
Oh, yes. Member Stein, go ahead.
I don't know if any of you can answer it, but it talks about a civil fine of $1,000 a day after that 30-day limit for providing information, but it doesn't say who pays that fine. And I wondered, does that mean it's a fine on the agency? Does that mean it's a fine on the keeper of the public record? Does that mean it's a fine on somebody else?
Can you specify the section and paragraph, please?
Yeek. I'm so far down. If you just do a search, text search for civil fine, the first instance appears like almost towards the end of the bill in a section 10, but well, section 3, item.
So it's section 3, section 832.7 of the Penal Code. It would be, let's see, 10.9.8.7.6.
I mean, it's also mentioned
4.3.2. Hold on. 2.1. So it's B10. B1. I'm sorry. B1. Nope.
No, it's also mentioned in the, now that I see it, it's also mentioned in the second paragraph
B10.
of the bill.
But that's only the preamble.
Yeah, so beyond
the
the preamble, it's way down in there, and I just don't know.
B110. It says for every day, it says except to the extent temporary withholding for no longer period is permitted to pursuant to paragraph 7, records subject to disclosure on this subdivision shall be provided at the earliest possible time, no later than 45 days of the requested disclosure for every day beyond the day. So you have to start at the top to see who this applies to. So you have to kind of scroll back to the top and see who the subject of this is. It says, except it's provided in section B, the personal records of police and custodial officers and records maintained by a state or local agency.
So it's the agency that's fined?
Right. Then you go to B, and it says notwithstanding subdivision A, because this is where paragraph 10 is. The following peace officer or custodial officer personnel records and records maintained by the state or local agency shall not be confidential and be made for public inspection. So yes, it's the state or local agency.
Okay.
And then it says there, it says in 10, it says an agency shall be subject to a civil fine not to exceed $1,000 per day. That would go to the requester of the record.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a who moved? I'm sorry, I lost my place here.
Neighbors.
Oh yes, member Neighbors and seconded by member Schmidt. Let's open up for public comment.
Yes, please.
Mr. Leger, we have a speaker.
No, I know. Are you ready, sir?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. First, I wanted to thank you all for agendizing this. I know I wrote you a note. There's a lot more organizations that have just were stated recently that are in support of this. It's one of the best improvements to public records access statewide in a long time. And it's a lot more than just the sections that were just read out. There's permanent retention of all SB 1421 style records, not just for 5 years. The fines are amazing. I one day hope that the sunshine markings will be amended the same way, and they're based on time, not just, oh, we'll give it to you whenever you want. No, there's a deadline. They're doubling the parties' reasonable costs and attorney fees. There's a punitive part to it. This is really just an amazing law, and it limits the attorney-client privilege with respect to factual information. And as you know, the city attorney is claiming that in some of my complaints regarding body cam footage and other incident reports, just factual information that happens to be in the possession of the city attorney, is all attorney-client privilege. But this law, I really hope it passes. I strongly support any support of this law. If it doesn't pass the state legislature, well, we know where their priorities lie. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Hearing none. Any last discussion points on this one, members? Okay, ready for a vote? Hearing no objection, please call roll.
Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Schmidt?
Aye.
Member Schmidt, aye. Member Frazier?
Aye.
Member Frazier, aye. Member Padmanabhan?
Aye.
Member Padmanabhan, aye. Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Forsley?
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Yankee?
Aye.
Member Yankee, aye. Member LaHood?
Aye.
Member LaHood, aye. Member Highland? He's not here. Okay. Chair Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. The motion that the task force moves to make a recommendation to advise the Board of Supervisors to endorse SB 16.
Correct. Okay. Thank you very much. It was good work there, folks. Let's move on to our next item.
Yeah, give me a minute. I have to pull it up on my computer. I have to pull it up, so I'll be right with you. Okay, this report was prepared last week, April 30th. It included all the dates for committees this month, including the task force. So next Tuesday, we will have an EOT meeting. The agenda's been set. I've spoken to Chair Highland. Following that week will be complaint committee, and following that week will be compliance and amendments. And then the same schedule I have set for June. This is so that we can get through our backlog, at least at the committee level, and then start working it towards the task force level. I've got dates through July. We had several complaints that came in April. We have gone down in some of our numbers. 2020 in section 3, 2020 last month, there were 100 cases, and we were able to eliminate 11 of them, which is good. But the cases for 2021 did rise. So if you look at both last month's figures and this month's figures, there really isn't much of a difference, except that we're starting to make headway in 2020. So that's good. I have provided the minutes of the complaint committee. I've provided communications from Anonymous to the task force. And I have also provided a list of emails from March 31st to April 24th that I received from members of the public or people inquiring about the task force, and that I responded to. And that should be in with your packet.
Any questions or discussion for Cheryl?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, if not, then open it up for public comment. Public comment?
Yes, please. I'm not sure what I heard. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
just wait a moment.
Second.
Sure.
Second. You ready, Mr. Warfield?
Yes, tell me when I shall start.
Okay, you can start.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I noticed that the minutes, the draft minutes of the Complaint Committee of April 20th, which is just a very recent moment, are in here. And I'm not clear why. As I mentioned much earlier, when you were reviewing the 1.5-year-old minutes, that I had understood, and again, I can't quite say from where, that I had understood that if something is not approved within 6 months, if one of the committee minutes is not approved within 6 months, that it will be approved by the full task force. So I'm not really clear how this finds its way into the administrator's report, why or what that means, or whether it's going to be approved at the next meeting, or it's not clear to me at all. With respect to the contents, I want to appreciate and thank whoever drafted these, that the one point at which evidently I spoke, and I know that there was an important supervisors meeting at the same time. I've sometimes said you had once changed your meeting dates so that you would not coincide with the major meeting of the week at the Board of Supervisors. But in any case, evidently I made public comment only once on item 11. And there I'm appreciating that you have Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117. But there's missing the email address. And the idea that one might only be able to reach us by U.S. Postal Service, I think, is, well, quite wrong, and it actually would put a blockade in the ability of somebody to reach us if they had email and wanted to reach us in that way. Additionally, the
30 seconds.
The zip code extension is missing. It should be 94117-0544. So I'm not sure what to say about this, since you're evidently not approving this, but it's being included here, and I don't know how long that slightly erroneous reference will stay unchanged, or when it's going to be approved somewhere. So I'd appreciate some clarity on that. And
time is up, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll ask the question, Cheryl. Why is this set of minutes for the complaint committee in your report?
Because you've asked me to put complaint committee meeting minutes in the administrator's report. That's why it's there.
Okay.
I usually include it.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I failed to recall that, and it's not in my notes. That I should have announced at the beginning of the meeting. So from this point forward, I've asked Cheryl to include the complaint committee minutes in her report, so that you all will have it as part of the to review before the meeting. Now you can just go to the website and do that, but I felt that if it wasn't too much extra trouble for Cheryl to include it in her report, and I would just tell you that it's there and will be there at the next when the next agenda comes. Because otherwise, besides just getting kind of a report from the chair and committee members before we hear the hearing, you should at least be able to see if there was anything more pertinent or substantive that might help you understand the case better, considering that we're not receiving the legal memos anymore. So it's just to provide as much information as possible. We'll probably have to include now all three of the committees. I think it may be better just to, maybe we'll just put the link to it, maybe somewhere in the agenda at the top, maybe, or something, and make it easier to find. But I think it'll just help all of us get prepared for these hearings, because they're not getting any easier. So the more information we can get ahead of time, the better. It makes our streamlines getting through the meetings tonight. And I'm glad we're getting to the end of this meeting before 9 o'clock tonight. So
I have a question, Bruce.
Yes.
With these minutes, would you also like me to continue providing the staff notes for all task force meetings?
Yeah, I think that's definitely appropriate. I think any and all information, if you feel that it's redundant at that point, then we can talk. Let's review that. Before I make any hasty decisions, let's you and I review that, and we'll see if it's too redundant. If it's too redundant, then we don't need the staff notes anymore, and people can just refer to the minutes.
Well, the one thing that staff notes does do is it collects per case all the case minutes. Like if I have, just like tonight, like for the Anderes case, I mean, if there were other committee minutes, then you could see all that information associated with that particular case. That's the one thing it does do, is keep it in order.
Okay, well, let's review that, and we'll figure that out. We're just trying to find ways to help everybody get familiar with the case as quickly as possible, not having the legal memos anymore. Okay, any other public comment?
Yes, please.
You ready?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you. One thing I would note is a member of the public informed me they were wondering, why do my communications to the SOTF from the public get posted here, but not other people who are sending kind of advocacy or some other kind of position for the SOTF to take. So, and I think the issue looking at that person's emails is maybe it's not realized that people are sending, a public correspondence to SOTF. So if you could maybe make it clear on the agenda or somewhere, how is it that someone is supposed to give you this kind of advocacy material? I know I put like a big disclaimer that this is public communication to SOTF for forwarding to all members, but I know other people want to be able to do the same thing, and so you may want to make that more clear. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, we'll review that. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yeah, I'd like to comment. May I be in?
Not yet, just a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm also a little bit concerned that I guess that Cheryl acts as sort of a gateway as to which communications do and do not reach the SOTF, and I think there's a fairly easy, well, I don't know, at least something that would be a sort of a Band-Aid for this. Another thing that concerns me is that people who submit, who file complaints, I don't think all of them are aware that their complaints become public records. In looking up cases, I found very detailed personal information. You look at these complaints and you get email addresses, you get names, you get all sorts of information that it's quite detailed and personal. And I think a lot of these people don't realize how much their information they're not just only giving to the SOTF, but to the general public. So maybe just making it clear that to everyone that, hey, this is very public and it's open to everyone. And just publishing all records, all sort of communications, so that everyone can see what is being sent to the SOTF. It's not just having it sort of being sort of, I guess, cherry picked, if you will. Yes, I've sent a number of communications to the SOTF and I have not heard anything, which is somewhat concerning. I've sent an email regarding the SFDCC's failure to provide Zoom information to the public despite their legal obligation to, and so it'd be very nice to hear back on that, or at
30
least
seconds.
to have some sort of idea about when one might receive a response. That would be very much appreciated. Right. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none. Any last words, folks? Okay, hearing none. Let's thank you, Cheryl, for your work. Much appreciated. Let's go to the next item.
Okay. Item number 12, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force.
Floor is open. Member Vice Chair Yankee.
Just real quick comment, and I think we've talked about this before, but I noticed that this agenda, and I thought it was really helpful, included blue underlined hyperlinks for the bills that we were looking at in item number 10. And I was wondering if whatever, Cheryl, you did to make that look blue and underlined, if maybe we could use that same technology to link to all the attachments on all the other items so that the members of the public actually know that that word attachments is an actual hyperlink. Looks like the PDF we use supports that. So if we can maybe do that going forward, this is a suggestion.
Yeah.
Good suggestion. Anybody else?
This is Member Stein. I'll just raise something that I raised in the complaints committee, is that I would, if there's any scope for it, I would love for us to look at how these packets are done and consider making a table of contents for them that is also linkable through hyperlinks, and just have every document that appears have its own link, maybe even as an appendix or something like that, so that we don't have to just scroll through hundreds of pages of repetitive, documents, essentially. So rather than see an email 20 times in one case, it just had it was one item that you could link to in an appendix for that case.
Yeah, that has been a subject over the years. I think that can be done. I mean, the cover page has the page number that each section begins with. I prefer using the full function of PDF to create somewhat of like bookmarks or kind of little booklets, like little kind of folder sections for each one. So it makes it kind of creates containers or folders for each of the sections. Because there's a tremendous amount of repetition, and some of these files go on forever.
I just think a lot of eye strain, and it just seems so much more arduous to go through a packet if it's a 2,000-page packet and 1,000 pages of it is repetitive.
Right. And frankly, without some sort of explanation of what you're jumping into, it becomes somewhat of a, either wild goose chase or down a rabbit's hole, trying to figure out, which end is up. And it would be really bad if, you're heading down some path thinking that you understand what the case is, and then it really is something else. It's we have to deal with the loss of our legal memos at some point. And I have been trying my darndest to get a meeting with Supervisor Haney to see if we can get, some, like even a 0.5 FTE, just to do that on a monthly basis. Like a paralegal or something like that, because I think we're suffering in a lot of ways by not having that. So, all right, anything else? Member Schmidt.
Two things. One, just real, I know I've got the complaint committee, and I'm trying to, add a case or two every time I can. The backlog to me is such a, I don't know. I don't know if I should call it an embarrassment, but I feel like I don't know if we can really claim we're doing great service if we're like a year behind. And so to me, I just want to emphasize that clearing this backlog is my primary goal. The second thing I wanted to note is I don't know if it got completely addressed, but I thought, as did Member LaHood, I thought the idea that Member Wong could do the shadowing sounds superb. And, I'm going to guess that that's probably everyone just was on board with it, but I didn't know if it got spoken out. And so I just wanted to say that about Member Wong, that I think it would be great if she could do that. That's all.
Great. Let me just answer a question about the backlog a little bit. We've been trying to work out a way to make that happen because of Cheryl's. The way forward to make that happen is to make all the committees meet monthly. So the ones that are currently bi-monthly, which are CAC and EOT, they would be made to meet monthly only till we can get through the backlog, which I anticipate could be probably no more than 3 months, maybe 4 months. And this is just on the jurisdiction intake side. Okay, once that is complete, then we would possibly think about having 2 task force meetings a month until we can get to a more manageable place with the backlog. Now, a lot of the backlog is coming from a single requester. We've been in contact with that requester, and we're working out a different process because of the type of requests that are being made for that. And so that's still in play. We've had some meetings about it, and we're trying to see, frankly, if some of those, if we can identify certain kinds of complaints that are more kind of rudimentary, kind of non-compliance, where the merits. It isn't about the merits of the case. It's more about like pure timeliness, you know, where there's no contest, that kind of thing, and maybe having the task force take them up instead of having to run them through the complete complaint process. So, for instance, if we can identify respondents that declare no contest on a violation or an alleged violation, then we don't have to run it through our regular SOTF process. We would have a different process that would be that would expedite it, so that way we can get it off our docket real fast. So still in discussions about that, trying to figure it out. So we have something to present all of you. It's still kind of not at a proof of concept place yet, but it's ongoing. Member Neighbors.
I think Member Schmidt's hand was up before mine.
He just spoke.
Oh, his hand is not really up. There.
I didn't know it.
One of the things that that I've observed on the compliance committee is that we could really expedite our decision making if we had a searchable trove of orders of determination. And I know we've talked about it before, and I hate to bring it up again. But you know, to me, that's a really high priority. And I'm wondering if there's anything that I can do to support that happening. I'd be happy to do that. I just think it would make a huge difference, not only in terms of how swiftly we could move, but also just how consistent we are with our own selves, you know?
Okay, so I will report that Vice Chair Yankee, myself, Ms. Leger had met with Department of Technology twice to discuss this matter. And the first time they said, let's look into it, because we keep getting told by the clerk's office that they're trying to get us kind of an additional license to use the Legistar platform, which is how the Board of Supervisors track their legislation. And I think the Board of Permit Appeals, I think they were doing for them too. There's one other commission that it's under the Board of Supervisors, I think, or not part of the executive branch or something. We did have a meeting, I think it was last week, with the director of Linda Grinnell of Department of Technology. She just reported that yes, there's something up with the contract. They're now involved and are helping to try to make that, try to push it through and make something happen. So I would just say let's just hang tight a little while longer until we get a final, you know, kind of answer what's going on there. There's movement on it. There's attention on it. And with that, I'll just also add, you know, we've been asking not to use Microsoft Teams anymore because it's clunky. And the Department of Technology has made a decision to for everyone to use the WebEx. It's kind of the new updated or upgraded WebEx version. And they're encouraging us to use it. She is actively sending trainers to work with the folks that run our meetings, and had committed to work with the clerk of the board for the Board of Supervisors to completely move to the WebEx system, so we don't have to have this clunky kind of bridge or adapter or connector between the phone service and the online service. And it'll be a lot more controllable and will allow people to log into our meetings and see our faces. It will help also with sharing of the screen for the parties. It'll be a lot more controllable. So anxiously waiting for that report to come. So it's just an update. I don't really have anything of more substance to tell you than that. Anything else on people's minds? Any future agenda items? Okay, we'll think about it. You can send it to me. Let's open up for public comment and go home. Or most of us are already home. But what I mean. Public comment.
Yes, please. Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Which one of us is speaking?
Mr. Warfield?
When do I start?
Now.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association. Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com and PO Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I guess I thought that these were all future agenda items being discussed by the members, and many of the points I think are very valuable and important and should be on future agenda items. With respect to labeling, and part of that would be, for example, how are things working for folks and how aren't they? There could be an agenda item concerning what is happening with regard to backlogs or improvements generally, administratively, and so on and so forth, up to your call. But for the moment, let me say that labeling the attachments, I think, is critically important with respect to clarity, for example, for folks who get the agendas on paper or who print them out. There is no linking when there's paper. And if you look at the Library Commission, for example, they simply name the documents that they are linking to. And that would answer one of the folks' questions. Where are you jumping into? I think Bruce Wolf mentioned that. What are you jumping into? Well, if you can link on a particular item or one of the items that's included in an agenda item, then I think that is much easier and also clear for folks who are using paper. The backlog has been referred to a number of times. Again, I think that's a potential agenda item that ought to be discussed in all of its various aspects. Library Users Association was on the notice for today's meeting, and because we only got 2 days notice, the thing was sent out 2 days before the deadline. I'm sorry, not 2 days notice for the meeting, 7 days notice for the meeting, but only 2 days notice for the deadline to include material in the agenda. And that just wasn't enough for, I think, a reasonable preparation. And I, therefore, immediately, hoping that that immediacy would also help fill the spot that we had vacated, I tried to very quickly respond and say we can't do that. There are many withdrawals or continuances, I think, that could be avoided if there were greater time for being able to provide the information. And as far as clunky teams, I appreciate very much that everybody is equal. I would hate to have to bring something with somebody else who's got visuals and I don't. Thank you.
Next speaker.
May I speak?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. So I agree with all of the original comments about how to improve the agendas. They've been discussed now at multiple meetings. And I think part of your improvement of agendas is digitizing these complaint packets so they're not just huge images with broken OCR. Sometimes you can't really search through them. Nearly all, not all, but nearly all city records and the complaints are filed electronically. And obviously for the people who are sending you paper stuff, you have to scan them. But for most of us, and especially the city, it's always in digital form. And it would just be a lot easier to handle those records with those, table of contents, hyperlinks, etc. I had a similar experience to Mr. Warfield, and I think the second one of my complaints, there's a slot here that wasn't used today because another one of my complaints was scheduled, but we couldn't do it because the mayor's office said, well, he can't attend today. But I would hope that, when people can't come, and I accepted it, it was more than 5 days, I said fine, and so it never came here for a continuance. But it would be nice if, whenever someone can't show up, someone else can take their space. And I think I've said that before as well. Part of that backlog is 24 Prop G complaints, all filed by me, about 24 department heads who do not, record information required by the law. And I mean, unless you just say, well, we're just not going to care, I don't know what to do about that, right? Because we need to enforce the law, and I would hope that they would accept it. 1 out of 24 has said, oh, we just accept it. The other 23 want to fight. So, I mean, I don't know what to do in those cases other than suggest consolidation or something like that. But if they're not going to accept that they have to do what the law says about, for example, recording the subject matter of their meetings, I mean, I don't know, how is the city going to be held to the Sunshine Ordinance otherwise? Thank you very much.
Next speaker.
May I begin?
Just a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree that it'd be nice for us to be able to have WebEx, log into the WebEx platform to, see what people are doing and see whatever happens in the chat log, if anything happens in the chat log. And it was unclear to me if this is happening citywide or if this is just for the SOTF. It sounded like this is a citywide decision, which is nice, so that there'll be some uniformity in platform now. But I have concerns that that if the city is just transitioning totally to WebEx and no longer using MS Teams and Zoom and the whole plethora of various video conferencing solutions that they were using before, records that from previous meetings that may have been kept and such will be lost. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who might want to request records from they might want to find chat logs from an MS Teams meeting, or I believe that one can also send messages even when there's not an official meeting in session. So people might want to look up these things. And so if there's some way that these can be archived, that would be very important. I've also brought up concerns before about the use of the chat box, which the police commission, for example, does regularly. And of course, that's just the group chat, and I don't know what sort of direct message chat occurs, obviously. And so I feel like there needs to be some sort of regulation on that and on visibility of that going on forward. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will just say that there is no citywide mandate from the mayor for the executive branch of government to use any specific technology. So take it up. If you're concerned about the different departments that are using various different platforms, I'd start making your inquiry in that direction. Okay, no more public comment. Let's move to the next item.
Item number 13, adjournment.
Is there a motion? Oh, nobody wants to go home.
People.
I'll do it. This is Member LaHood. I motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
This is Member Neighbors. I'll second.
Okay, moved by Member LaHood, second by Member Neighbors. We, all those in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned at 21:03. Thank you, folks. Good job. 3 minutes over. All right, have a good night, everybody.
Hey, Victor, you gonna stick around?